G'day legends, I hope you're all amazing. We're checking out the Darkglass Anagram on today's video. This is primarily marketed as a bass multi-effects and modeler. It is extremely compact. It features a touchscreen, a plethora of ins and outs, and the ability to not only load IRs, but NAM captures and now third-party plugins with the marketplace they have just launched. What I want to do is let you hear some tones on bass and on guitar. We are primarily going to be looking at how you can set this up for guitar use today. I'm going to show you some of my favorite NAM captures that I've made, and we'll hear some of these third-party plugins that are available at launch. Darkglass Suite is the free software that lets you manage all the content on your Anagram. As you can see at the moment, I'm in the preset hub where I can manage and share my user presets. The assets loader lets me manage the onboard IRs and NAM files. Furthermore, they've got a link to Tone 3000 if you want to go and access a bunch of public NAM profiles or use it to train your own NAM profiles. And then you've got the marketplace and plugins section. This is where you can manage plugins that you've purchased or free plugins like these Nembrini Drive pedals that I've got. If you then want to go and purchase plugins, you can just visit the Anagram Marketplace directly up here. It's worth stressing that these plugin licenses are one-time purchases, they're not subscription-based, and all core updates for the Anagram, including all the Darkglass developed blocks, are and will always remain free. Anagram was developed and has primarily been marketed as a bass-focused multi-effects unit and modeler, and it certainly does that well. There's some really killer features in here. My absolute favorite is this Entropia multi-band bass compressor distortion. This essentially takes all the ingredients that you would use to make a modern multi-band bass sound and puts them in a single block. You've got controls for the low end in here. So you've got a compressor on the low end. You can adjust the level really easily on there along with the low end compression. Then you've got a mid band and high band with their own drive control. So let's say I wanted to bring the high level down a bit, but distort it more, and I wanted to bring up the mid level and distort it more, I can do that. There are a bunch of templates for this block you can access, and furthermore, you can go and change the type of compression on the low end as well as the various crossover points. I really like in here with the mid-range and the high end, you can have different types of drive as well. So you've got the drive type. Let's go say for the B3K, let's set it to grunt over here. I can crank up that drive. I can play around with the high pass frequency and the low pass frequency on there. I'm just playing a Japanese jazz bass with some pretty boring pickups in it, but this is what the Entropia block does. Let's begin by making a really quick guitar preset using Anagram. I have loaded in some of my favorite NAM profiles and IRs using the Darkglass hub. If you want the IRs, they're available for free. Just check the link in the video description. The NAM profiles I'm going to use are available for my Patreon subscribers. So if I just touch anywhere on one of these plus icons, let's start with an amp and cab block. If I scroll across here through all the bass amp options, I've got this neural amp block over here, and this is where I can load NAM profiles. So I'm going to go to the end on here. Let's start, say, with this LT800 NAM profile that I captured. You have options for the input and output gain as well as the EQ position. I'm going to leave all of that flat for now. Let's immediately add a cab block over here. If I scroll past these bass amps again, you can see at the end of the chain, I've got the guitar cab option, and I've got my free IR loaded in there. That's in position number 1, makes it easy for me. So at the moment, I've got JCM 800 NAM profile into my free IR. It sounds like this. I'm playing a Fender 75th Anniversary Ultra 2 Tele. Sounds like rock and roll to me. Let's do a little bit of filtering on this cab. I'll come straight after the cab and I'll go to the EQ section on here. You can see there's a selection of different amp or graphic style EQs. You've also got dedicated high pass and low pass filter blocks in here. Let's start out with a low pass, and I'm just going to rip out a bunch of high end on here. Let's set that somewhere around 6K, and I will change the slope to 12 dB per octave. I'm going to do a similar thing but with a high pass filter over here. So let's go into the filter section. I'm going to set this, I think, around 80 Hertz on there just to take a little bit of that rumble out of the guitar sound. I'll leave the slope as it is. So now I'm taking out a bit of low end, I've taken out a bit of high end. It's just smoother and more pleasant to listen to as a DI tone. Let's add some effects to this now. Anagram does ship with a bunch of built-in effects. They are primarily bass focused though. For example, if I was to go into the delay and reverb section, you can see you've got a basic digital, analog, and mod delay along with a room, plate, and hall reverb. However, I've downloaded a couple of plugins from Marketplace. You can see we've got a plate reverb plugin. There's this Gaffa delay, which we'll hear a little bit later. That's an excellent tape style delay. There's the Nembrini Roland chorus echo emulation. Let's add the plate in here. And what I'm going to do is just load up one of these EMT 140 plates. I quite like number 4 on guitar. I'm going to adjust the wet level over here, bring it up to maybe -12. I like that there's a high pass filter option in here. So let's set that around 200 Hertz. And I'm going to leave trails on. Let's just have a listen to the difference between having it totally dry and with a little bit of this plate reverb. pretty happy with that. Let's add a boost to the front of the chain. I'm going to use one of the free Nembrini drives that are available. You can see they've got a Tube Screamer, Rat, and Klon style plugin. I've also downloaded this Rocker 83 drive block, which is based on the edge and distortion modes of the Rockman. We can hear that one in a little bit. I think a Tube Screamer is a classic choice, but I'm feeling fancy. Let's go with the Nembrini Klon Minotaur. I'll just bring the gain down a little bit. I always like boosting the treble, and the output on a Klon style drive will hear it bypassed and then engage. That's adding just enough sauce on there. I really like that. If I wanted to swap it out, I can hit the little swap icon at the front. Let's try that Rocker 83 on here, maybe starting out with, let's just start out with the distortion mode on there. Distortion into distortion is always more fun. I actually really like that. That's thickening everything up and adding some body and sustain. So let's add some grease to the end of the chain now. And what I want to do is make some space for a chorus and a delay over here. So the way that I can do that is to just touch this, hold it, and drag it and drop it anywhere else on the grid. There we go, nice and easy. Let's add some modulation. You can see there's a modulation and pitch section over here. These are all the built-in effects over here. I'm just gonna go with the built-in chorus. Let's set it up for stereo mode. I'm gonna go for a pretty low rate. I'll also go easy on the depth and just back the blend off over here. I like that there's a built-in high-pass filter with 3 settings. That's great on bass, but on guitar, I'm just gonna leave that on the stock mode. So let's hear it without and then with the mint chocolate chorus. There's the mandatory King's X for the video. Let's add some delay at the end of the chain over here. So in the delay and reverb section, like I said earlier, you've got a basic digital, analog, and mod delay over here. But I did download this Nembrini Chorus Echo, which I like the sound of. And I'm going to leave the chorus intensity quite low on this because I am using another chorus block on there. You've got a couple of different echo modes on here mirroring this particular space echo. Let's start out with number 3. If I swipe across, I can also access things like the echo time, the echo note volume, and some EQ on there. I'm going to turn the built-in reverb in this one off, and I might just bring the, you know what, I'm going to take a bit of treble out of this. Let's darken it up a little bit. Let's have a listen. Thing that I've added to the chain is just the stock noise suppressor block at the stock settings on there. What I can do now, you can see I'm currently in preset mode over here. Let's enter scene mode over here. And what I want to do is just organize these into 3 distinct variations called scenes. So that way I can use foot switches 1, 2, and 3, say, to swap between my unboosted rhythm tone with just a little bit of reverb, something like that lead tone that I've got dialed up at the moment with all the delay and the grease, and then maybe a version of that tone without the echo. To do that, all I have to do is select the blocks that I want bypassed or engaged on a given scene. To bypass a block, I just have to double tap it. I can also zoom out if I want to do this. So let's bypass the chorus, bypass the echo over there. Now I'll go to scene 2. I want everything on, so that's good. Then for scene 3, let's bypass the chorus and the echo. Now I've got my unboosted tone with a bit of reverb. I've got my big greasy lead sound, and I've got my boosted sound without all the grease on there. Let's have a listen to it. You could hear that the changes between scenes are seamless as well, which I really like. Let's save this preset now. I'll give it a really original name like LT Rock. And then I can hit the save button, but also use this as a template. So I've got my scenes in there, I've got my effects. For me, a lot of the time, the rigs that I build all end up having a pretty similar structure. So I'm gonna come into my neural amp over here and I'll select this model of my dual rectifier that I made. Let's have a listen to this across those scenes. I might actually swap out this rocker boost over here for the Nembrini Klon, because I really like the combo of a Klon into a Recto. I actually recorded a lot of the guitars for Ragdoll's Back to Zero album with that particular setup. Let's hear it. For another variation of that, let's swap out this Minotaur for the trusty Tube Screamer style drive. So we'll do that one. I'm going to set this up with the drive and tone below noon, a little bit of a boost from the level, and then I'm going to use this clean NAM capture that I made that I've called OS in here. Let's pair that up with a different IR. I'm going to use my EV Mix IR, and we can maybe swap some of these effects out. Let's swap this particular reverb over here. I think maybe just for the stock hall reverb. Actually, no, let's do this. For another variation on that preset, I've swapped out the Minotaur for this Nembrini 808 plugin. This is another free one. I've got my OS amp capture in here, which is nice and clean. I've paired that up with my free EV Mix IR, and I've swapped out the reverb for this Verb Mark II, which is a Shimmer reverb. You can see that you've got controls for the decay, pre-delay, the blend between the early reflections and the tail. There's a tone control, a shimmer control, which I'm just going to turn down a little bit, an overall mix, and I can scroll across and select the room size. Let's do a large room. Before we play any more with it, I have added that plate reverb at the end of the chain again, and I've added the luminal compressor, which is an FET style comp on here, just to smooth everything out. It's got the same scene organization on here. So when I go to scene 2, it's going to kick in the drive, the modulation, and the delay, but let's just hear it relatively clean. fun preset that I put together based around the Gaffa delay. You can see I've got not one, but two instances of this tape delay plugin. I've also got this pull trick plugin on here just to beef up the low and the high end a little bit. I'm using my OS NAM profile and my free EV Mix IR. And then at the end of the chain, we have this Plate 140 plugin. You can see I'm using this particular IR, E140 Plate 6. I've cranked up the wet level on here and given it a little bit of a low cut. Let's start by bypassing the delays, then I'll bring them in one by one. We've got a 400 millisecond delay running into a 600 millisecond delay. I'm going to play around with the modulation as I go. Product primarily marketed at bass players, Anagram sounds fantastic for guitar, particularly when you load up your own NAM captures and IRs. There are some limitations compared to guitar-focused modelers, whether it's things like the Quad Cortex, the Axe Effects, or the Helix. I do like that this is so compact, and having a touchscreen on this form factor is something I really like. It has been a breeze to use using the Darkglass Hub software to load in those NAM captures and IRs was also really straightforward. I would like to see them expand the selection of effects that are available in the firmware, particularly adding some more effects like stereo delays, some more modulation options, and some more EQs and boosts. Furthermore, having things like high and low pass filters in the guitar cab block, I think would just make things a lot tidier, and I like that it is a really easy to navigate modular system as it is. That's somewhat mitigated by the addition of the marketplace, and I really hope we see a lot more third-party vendors and options come on in the marketplace, because at the moment, this is a fantastic way to run your NAM captures in a hardware unit. Imagine being able to run your favorite sound toys, Valhalla, or FabFilter plugins in something like this. It would make it a fantastic standalone option. I think it's already a fantastic standalone option if you want to build basic rigs like we did today, but imagine being able to take, say, FabFilter Saturn or Valhalla Supermassive and add it to your existing rig and have it really easy to navigate on that touchscreen. For now, I'd love to hear from all of you. Let me know how you liked the tones in this video. I think as a bass-specific device, this is amazing, and I'm definitely going to be getting Ryan to use this for some ragdoll gigs, in particular those Darkglass settings in there, all the library in there. It's like a dream come true, and it's kind of caveman proof as well. You know, what you see is what you get. You can have a couple of different sounds in there. He's been using a Sans amp for a long time, so I'll probably make some NAM captures of the Sans amp to load in there, and we can compare and contrast them with some of the effects in here. As a bass specific processor, amazing. As a guitar specific processor, I'm really keen to see how this develops over the next year or two, and I'd love to hear from all of you in that regard as well. If you like what I'm doing on the channel, there's links in the video description to get my free IRs. You can sign up to my Patreon. You can buy some of the music that I make with my band Ragdoll. For now, go grab your stringed instrument of choice and make some loud noises. I'll see you on the next one.